It is said that waterways are a reflection of the communities that they run through. 30 years into South Africa's democracy, with its ebbs and flows, what do Cape Town's waterways reveal about our communities here? For starters, there is the Lesley River, where upstream in the affluent suburbs of Claremont and Newlands, the river and its surrounding area are looking beautiful, thanks largely to a local stewardship group who have been taking care of it. In this area, the river is used for recreational enjoyment, well-being from time in nature, and even an outdoor classroom with local schools. As we follow the Lesley River downstream, it starts to look a little rough around the edges, with more pollution and fewer water creatures that are symbols of good water quality. Here we also find the river is canalized, meaning its once natural edges have been framed in concrete to guide the river in a specific direction. Whereas in the past, apartheid laws prevented people of colour from accessing neighbourhoods with less degraded waterways, today it is pollution that keeps people from accessing the river for cultural and spiritual activities, such as washing away bad spirits. As we continue to follow the Lesley to where it meets the Black River in Observatory, we find ourselves at a particular point of current tension amongst competing interests. This floodplain, which is crucial to flood prevention and an important heritage site for many local indigenous people, is currently the construction site of a major shopping mall, apartments, and a corporate headquarters meant to bring jobs and boost the economy. Still on the topic of rivers, a perhaps lesser known but equally significant waterway is the Lotus River. As one of Cape Town's longest waterways, the Lotus River runs through a number of neighbourhoods. It starts at the airport, then goes through Gugulethu, Manenberg, Edith Stevens Wetlands Park, Hanover Park and Grossie Park through to the Zikuflei. Many city dwellers may not even know the Lotus River exists. Has this catchment received the attention and rehabilitation efforts of other river catchments in the city? River pollution can come from a range of sources, including individuals, informal housing, construction, farms, or faulty wastewater treatment plants, to name a few. A lack of understanding of the importance of rivers, including their role as habitat for plants and animals, only adds to the problem of river pollution. There is a need for educating people around their rights and responsibilities in relation to water, and to include people of colour and local and traditional knowledge systems in this water education. If we jump back for a moment, near where we started with the Lesley, we find the Newlands Spring, a mountain spring where residents can collect 25 litres at a time for free of what is perceived to be delicious, clean drinking water. While it is generally considered safe to consume, the city does not guarantee the safety of this water, as it is not treated in any way. The long queues that formed for collecting spring water here during the Cape Town water crisis of 2018 transformed the site of the Newlands Spring. This area was converted so that it is surrounded by concrete, fencing and security. The Newlands Brewery have access to this fresh water to make and sell beer. If you watch people collecting water there for a little while, you might ask whether the restrictions on the amount of water which can be collected are in fact being reinforced. Not everyone can travel to the Newlands Spring to collect water. Following the city's waterways down from the mountain, we find the hidden hydrology of the Cape Flats Aquifer. This important groundwater, that's water underground that can be accessed, for example, by digging a borehole, is an important resource for food production by local farmers. Residents who own property over this aquifer and who can afford to install a borehole can tap into the supply. Many communities will move to areas where tapping into this aquifer is technically possible, but also unaffordable. Anyone wishing to dig a borehole beyond small-scale domestic use and non-commercial gardening first requires a water use license from the National Department of Water and Sanitation. As we follow our rivers down their path to the sea, we find ourselves at the Deep River estuary and the home of the highly polluted Milnerton Lagoon. In 2021, the lagoon's entire ecosystem collapsed from sewage pollution. This place used to be home to 10% of the fish breeding grounds for the whole west coast of South Africa, but by 2021, all the fish had died, all the seagrass had died, and all the birds had fled, leaving little life to the once wildlife of Table Bay Nature Reserve. There are three key sources of this pollution. 1. Sewage infrastructure that can't cope and overflows from urban areas expanding beyond the design capacity of the plants. 2. Increasing informal housing without sewer systems, including illegal connections, sometimes connecting sewage to stormwater pipes. And 3. Sewage pump station failures, including damaged pumps causing sewage spills. Despite dangerously high levels of E. coli and unbearable smells, it's not just people's health that is affected. With key breeding areas for small fish collapsing and high levels of pollutants flowing into the sea from the lagoon, the impact on fishing is having negative effects on the economy and food security. There's a drop in tourism in the area, and the pollution is stopping families from swimming at Milnerton Beach, while the Milnerton Canoe Club, South Africa's oldest canoe club that started in 1961, has had to close down. Following the estuary to the ocean, but over the mountain at a different ocean, we find ourselves along False Bay at Fishhook Beach. This coastline has evidence of fish traps linked to a long indigenous fishing history. In fact, nearby and overlooking these oceans, Piers Cave was the site of archaeological findings dating over 12,000 years ago, linked to some of the area's original people and suggesting important links between the mountain and the ocean. All important parts of the South African Cabinet adopted Khoi and San heritage route. The one and only restaurant on Fishhook Beach, called The Galley, has been operating for 36 years by a Khoi woman and her family. This restaurant, site of Khoi traditional ceremonies and weddings, and a mini museum sharing Khoi culture, also part of the Khoi and San heritage route, was auctioned by the city for commercial development in November 2023. While it might not be a natural waterway like the ocean, rivers, wetlands, estuaries, aquifer and streams, another important waterway in Cape Town is the water piped to taps. Some people have drinkable water coming out of taps right into their homes or yards, provided by the city for a fee if it's beyond the free basic water given to some households. The city's water delivery service relies on residents paying fees to recover costs. Occasionally, the water in these areas can be cut off for a period of time, but typically with advance notice. Some homes have water management devices installed by the city, which restrict their daily water allocation to the free basic amount of 350 litres. Some of these devices are faulty at times and shut off water access. The daily water allocation of devices doesn't take into consideration larger households. For example, some homes having backyarders, that is, people renting dwellings in others' backyards. Some people who can't afford to pay for water and who use more than their free basic amount have their water cut off or their water pressure lowered so it trickles but doesn't flow fully. Some people cannot bathe or use water for other things. Some people feel the whole process is unfair because the public were not invited to participate in the decision to use the devices in the first place. There's a need for grassroots voices to be valued equally in water management processes. People need basic necessities such as water before they can realize their life's potential, for example, in participatory processes. The city started phasing out their water management device program in 2021. Then there are those people without taps in their homes. Residents living in informal settlements typically share one outdoor communal tap with many families. Many people have to walk long distances from their homes to reach these taps. Crime in these communities can be very high and worse at night, so the journey to the taps can be risky. Here, the water can be cut off without notice, typically provided through the ward councillor reaching the residents. Sometimes it's because the taps are not working properly, either because there's an issue with getting leaks fixed or because of an infrastructure issue. And finally, there are those people without any taps at all. New informal settlements pop up around the city. These areas, often previously vacant areas or bushveld, emerge without planning and thus do not have water taps from the city. This is also the case with people living on the streets. Some people without taps rely on water from streams and rivers as primary water sources. While our path along the waterway of piped water looks mainly at the needs and uses of residents, it's important to note that some of the city's water is reserved for industrial users. Looking at the differences that exist between where, how, and by whom water is accessed starts to speak to notions of injustice. If waterways are a reflection of the communities that they run through, Cape Town's waterways reveal 4 key themes when it comes to understanding water justice. 1. Water access. 2. Water quality. 3. Water distribution. And 4. Water knowledge. Water access can be understood based on 2 water uses. One is for water for basic needs, like drinking, cooking, and washing, and one is access to water bodies, like rivers and the sea, for additional needs like education, recreation, well-being, and cultural and spiritual practices. Our brief tour of some of Cape Town's waterways revealed not only key water themes and issues, but also the various forms that the local water justice movement is currently taking. For example, there is a local stewardship group working regularly to keep parts of the Lesley River clean and beautiful. There are a number of activists and organizations, including members of indigenous movements, working to potentially halt or reverse the planned development along the confluency of the Lesley and Black Rivers. There are researchers and collaborators involved in a study looking at reimagining what the Lotus River could be and how to engage the communities it runs through as its custodians. They are members of a local horticultural food and farming campaign who, in 2020, won a landmark court ruling which reconsidered a proposed housing development project because of the impact it would have on the Cape Flats aquifer. These activists continue to do a lot of work around advocating for the appropriate use and management of the Cape Flats aquifer. Local residents have been holding government accountable for solving the problem of pollution at Milnerton Lagoon, especially by sharing photos with dates and times linked to complaints. Works are underway for an upgrade to the Potsdam wastewater treatment plant. Since that will likely take at least 3 years, residents proposed a temporary solution of using a sandbag barrier to trap the sewage and a pump to pump it back to Potsdam wastewater plant for treatment. As long as it's not raining, this temporary solution has shown that it can make a big difference. Still, much work remains to be done to revitalize this waterway. One local group who identify as Khoi and San, along with their legal professional partners, are currently challenging the city's auctioning off of the only restaurant on Fishhook Beach, an important steward and part of the region's Khoi and San heritage route. A local organization in Cape Town is providing mobile wash facilities. For example, showers, toilets, and drinking water to those living within the urban landscape that have limited or no access to water and sanitation. A team of researchers, organizations, and citizens have been doing community-driven data collection of water stories as an important step towards making access to water more equitable, affordable, and easily accessible. And a community of activist citizen scientists have been testing their water quality and leveraging the results to lobby their local governments for actions towards improvements. While there are a lot of efforts currently taking place to bring about water justice in Cape Town, more collaborative efforts are needed. 10 experienced water justice activists working across different issues and areas in Cape Town, when interviewed, collectively identified 7 social issues they feel local water issues connect with. 1. Food security. 2. Health. 3. The rights of women and girls. 4. Climate change. 5. Energy. 6. Housing and land rights. And 7. Education. Are there ways that social movements addressing some of these or other social issues can collaborate with the water justice movement? How could collaboration mutually strengthen everyone's effort? What might meaningful alliance building look like? How can the right to water that's in South Africa's constitution be seen and felt in practice? And what might be possible in 10 years' time? Imagine 40 years into South Africa's democracy, in 2034, with its ebbs and flows. What would Cape Town's waterways reveal about our communities then?